Hello and welcome to Creative Marketing TV. My name is Susan Joy Schlief. I'm the founder and host of Creative Marketing TV. And I have been having a bad tech day. My internet connection was down most of the morning, so I've just been scrambling to get everything set up for this. And then when I logged in, I discovered my webcam's not working. So fortunately, I was planning to do mostly a slide presentation today, but I won't be able to put myself on screen as I usually do. So I apologize for that. But I have some fun stuff to share with you today. If you got my email or saw my announcement on Facebook, I am wrapping up. The month of May has been National Photograph Month, and I haven't done too much to celebrate it this year, not as much as I usually have. Sorry, I'm going to wait a second until the truck goes past my window there. So anyway, I thought I would do my broadcast that I normally do on Saturday mornings, and I wasn't able to do it last Saturday. So I thought I would do it today on the last day of National Photograph Month, since we're going to talk about photographs. So let me switch over to my slideshow and we'll get underway. If you are watching live and you have comments or questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will check towards the end to see what's there. Even if you don't have any questions or comments, if you would put a comment in with your name so I know who's here, that would be great. So 1 second while I bring up the slides. All right. Hopefully this part is going to work. It worked all fine outside of the live stream. So let's see what happens here. There we go. Celebrating Photograph Month. So this is, as I said, part of my Creative Marketing TV series that I normally do on Saturdays. Today is Thursday, May 31st. So regardless of whether you're taking your own photos, whether you're using a camera or a smartphone, or whether you're using stock photos, we're going to talk about some things today that you will be interested in. You can shoot your own. You can use stock photos, and you can even use free public domain stock photos. And I'm going to talk specifically about one of my favorite techniques, or styles, I guess I should say, that I've been really enjoying lately, and that is flat lay photos, where you have that kind of top-down perspective. You're looking down on top of the scene like a bird's eye view. So we're going to look at some different ways that can be used, and how and why you might want to create your own flat lay photos. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to get all the camera equipment to do that, because it can be a little complex, but there are some ways that you can piece together a flat lay kind of photo, and I'll touch briefly on that. So why might you want to do that? Well, for one thing, come on, there we go. You can do this kind of thing, which you can't do if the photo is already assembled. So those images obviously are separate graphic elements that I layered on top of the rest of the photo. And there are some designers and design companies, or yeah, I guess companies is the right word, that specialize in creating elements that you can do that with, that have transparent backgrounds and work very well for layering on top of other photos. Another reason is that they can be moved around for different kinds of layouts. So here I've added that tulip over on the right side there, but I could also move it down to the bottom. Maybe I want to put it over on that side to have more room for text on the right. It's really just a matter of finding what looks like a good layout to you. Or you can use a larger overlay photo. Maybe you want a bouquet of flowers rather than just the single tulip. And it makes it really easy to do some special effects like that, to gray out the background image and just have part of it in color. And there are ways to do that with a regular image, but it certainly makes it much easier and faster if the part that you're going to leave in color is a separate image. So basically, here's what we would do. We would start with a background, and there are lots of different kinds of backgrounds, whether you're using paid stock photos, if you have a subscription like to deposit photos or Shutterstock or whatever site you like to use, they're going to have lots of different kinds of backgrounds. Even free sites like Pixabay have lots of background images available. The trick can be finding what keyword to use to look them up. Sometimes that might take a while, but this wood background is from Pixabay, so it's a free image. And then you want to find transparent images to layer on top of it. And going back to Pixabay again, they have a setting in their search function that you can look for objects that have a transparent background. So that makes it easier to find these. And if you get several separate PNGs like that with transparent backgrounds, you can create a scene. And of course, there are lots of photos that you can download that have the scenes already created, but this way you get to design the scene the way you would like it to look. And you can make sure that you have the elements in there that you want and that there's room to add your message somewhere. Now, one thing that you want to be really careful of if you're doing this is to pay attention to shadows. If I go back to that previous scene, you'll notice this orange cup and saucer over here already had a shadow built into it when I added that. So then I added a shadow to the other elements, excuse me, so that they would match the cup, which had it already built in. Now, the ones on the next page don't have that. This is transparent around it, but there's no shadow. Now, we could add a shadow if we wanted, and the same with the tulip. It does not have a shadow. If we add a shadow to this, though, there is a slight problem, which I'll address on the next slide. So I can add the shadow to both the tulip and the cup and saucer. But do you notice anything with that cup and saucer? There is a problem with that shadow. If you compare it with the orange one, you'll see the orange has a shadow not just around the edge of the saucer, but there's a shadow from the cup as well. We can add a shadow around the saucer here, but we can't add a shadow to the cup. Well, I suppose we could, but it would be a lot more work. PowerPoint doesn't have an automatic way to do that, whereas it does have a way to add a shadow around the image, the outside of the image, but it doesn't have any way to add it around the cup because that's not a separate image. So that's one thing that I try to pay attention to when I'm looking for transparent PNG images to use in layering like this is to look at, do they have shadows built in already? And if they do, whether they do or whether they don't, you need to look not just at the outside edge of the image, but internally, where there should be a shadow, but there isn't. Because that's what makes it look much more natural then. Otherwise, if we get something like this, it just doesn't look right. Even though we have a little bit of shadow here, this part in the middle looks very flat because there's no shadow around it. It doesn't look realistic in 3D. So, and then another thing you want to do when you're layering your objects on top of the background is make sure you leave room for your message. And you want to make sure that the message stands out. So on this background, we'd change it to white rather than a dark color, right? So one of the things that I wanted to tell you about in today's presentation is that there are places, as I think I mentioned this already, but there are places where you can purchase those assets, because it does take a while sometimes to find transparent PNG objects that you can layer that have the right shadows. And let me just go back to some of those other examples here. So yes, so I mentioned with these flowers that those are separate objects. They have their shadows built in internally. They don't have an external shadow, but they do have shadows internally around the petals. And each of those little flower blossoms like that is a separate image. There's a whole bunch of them that came in that bundle. And oh, I forgot to add this example, but there are a couple of other sets that I've bought that work for creating these scenes like this. Sometimes they're referred to as mock-ups, or sometimes they're called flat lays. Sometimes they're called, there's another name too, and at the moment I'm not thinking of it. But a lot of these are in Photoshop format only, and they're scene creators. That's what they're called often. And so it will be like a Photoshop add-in where it helps you assemble the scene, and then it lets you apply the shadows through that scene creator so that they all match. If you're not using Photoshop, though, some of the designers who create those kinds of packages also offer it in PNG form. And that's what I got for these flowers. So actually, I was going back here to show you with this one. So as I mentioned, adding the shadows here is one thing, right? But as you're looking for these images, you want to get object images, transparent objects that are going to look realistic. These flowers here in this bouquet look much more realistic than the single tulip. Oops, I didn't realize it was that far back. There we go. I mean, adding the shadow to the tulip helps, but it still just somehow doesn't quite look as real as the bouquet, to me at least. So that's part of what you have to experiment with. And because that can take some time to find the right kinds of objects to use, and you may not be able to find what you're looking for. That's one of the reasons I started looking for these designers who create the scene creator bundles of images, and if they make them available in PNG format rather than Photoshop only. So that's one aspect that I wanted to let you know about if you're not aware that you can buy those and use them to create your own bundles. Now, usually the PNG ones come without shadows because you're not going to have that functionality that you would have in Photoshop to apply the shadows overall. So usually those are without shadow. However, if you're adding them to PowerPoint, then you would have the option of adding the shadows yourself. So the other thing I wanted to mention is when we were talking about, are you taking photos with yourself with a smartphone? Well, of course, there are lots of photo-related apps that you can use, but I've been experimenting more, not so much with the photo apps that help you take photos, but the ones that help you edit and modify the photos. And those you can use even with stock photos that you've downloaded that someone else took. So some of the apps that I've been playing with are what's referred to as neural network apps, where they apply a graphic style similar to some famous paintings, like it might be an abstract expressionist kind of look, or a watercolor look, or an impressionist look, or oil painting style. And it just, some of them look better with certain photos and not so good with others. So it does take some experimentation. There are quite a few that are available as free apps, and then some of them have a paid upsell version as well if you want to get more features. So that is another thing that I would encourage you to look at. And, especially if you have a variety of different photos that you're trying to use in one presentation or one ebook or one video or whatever it is that you're creating. If the photos don't match in style, then applying the same kind of filter to all of them can help them to make them look more unified, like they're all part of the same graphic design. So a few of the ones that I've been really enjoying, there's one called Prisma, Prisma, and another one called PixArt that I've been exploring lately, Picsart. And the free gift that I offered for people who attend live has a list of a few of my favorite apps, as well as some of my favorite free image download sites. Like Pixabay is one of them, but I included several others as well. So for those of you who are here live, I will put that in the chat for you at the end here. Oh, no, you know what? That's the part I didn't get done this morning because my internet was down. So I will have to send that to you. So if you are here live, be sure that you put a comment in the chat so I know who is here, so that I can send you that free download after the Hangout is over. So I did want to, in addition to talking about some of the apps and some of the techniques that I've been experimenting with for the flat lays, I also had, excuse me, sorry. I also have a training opportunity coming up over the summer that is going to be really great for people who want to not just learn some techniques and then maybe never use them. Like, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's ever done that, sat through a webinar and learned something and thought, oh, that's really cool. But then I never used it. Or went to a workshop or some kind of class that I took or whatever, and just never got around to applying what I learned. So this program is going to help you be, have a little bit more accountability for making use of what you learn. And I'm setting it up as a 3-month summer school for picture techniques. So let me bring up a little bit about it and explain it to you. At first I was going to call it PowerPoint Summer School, but then I realized that not all of it's PowerPoint, so it probably is better to call it Picture Techniques Summer School. Now, just to be really clear, this is not about taking pictures with your camera. This is about after the picture is taken already, whether it's yours or somebody else's. These are some methods and techniques that you can use, some of them in PowerPoint, some of them in other apps, that can help to make your images look more engaging, more unusual, to get people's attention, and help to make a cohesive design package in whatever kind of content you're creating. So it's going to be 4 weekly webinars for each summer month. We're going to start in June and go through August. You'll learn 1 new picture technique each week. Plus, we'll have a review from the previous week, have some Q&A time, and time for student showcase to show, whatever you did from the previous week or the week before. If you've got a project that you want to get some feedback on, we can do that as well. So I'm expecting about a half-hour training and then about a half-hour for review and Q&A and showcase feedback. So this is, like I said, an opportunity to learn and implement, not just learn and never do anything with it. Of course, it's still up to you. It's not like I'm going to kick you out of the program if you don't do anything, but it will be encouraged to do something and bring it to the next session and get some feedback on it. So each week you'll have the opportunity to learn a fun, interesting method for dealing with images. Then you'll have a week to play with it and get feedback or help. And in addition to the weekly webinars, there will be a Facebook group, so that will be another place where you can get feedback as well. So here's what we're doing. PowerPoint techniques as well as other apps. You'll have 12 lessons with 12 different techniques. You'll get ongoing access to the webinar recordings and a private Facebook group for interaction and feedback. The webinars are going to be either Wednesday evenings or Thursday evenings. Probably most of the time Wednesday, but occasionally we may shift it to Thursday. Or if everybody that signs up says Thursday is better, then I can change it. But right now the plan is to do Wednesday evenings at 4 p.m. Eastern. And as I said, it'll be about a half-hour training and a half-hour Q&A feedback session. I can tell you what the first 2 are going to be, and then after that, we'll kind of see, what people are more interested in. I've got way more techniques than I can do in 12 sessions. So running out of content is not going to be a problem. It'll be more a matter of seeing which ones the group is interested in. But we're going to start with going into a little more detail about the flat lays and talk about some of the different topics, I guess, that there are lots of photos available. Food photography is one where there are lots of flat lay photos available. Desktop office kind of scenes is another. And we'll talk about some of the differences of different styles of flat lay and which ones work better for adding text. And then I'll show you some of the specific techniques that I mentioned today, but I didn't actually show you how to do them. And then the second week, June 13th, we'll look at that PixArt app, which is a free app. It has an upgrade version that you can pay for, premium version, but the the free app has lots of techniques that you can play with, including a cool one that makes it look like a miniature, which is very popular these days on Instagram. So here are a couple of examples of things that we'll go over. How to create a special effect that looks like this. I showed you that earlier, where the background gets grayed out and just part of the image is in color. In this case, that's a separate image, but you can also do it even when it's all one photo. You can gray out the background and leave part of the image in color. And I'll show you how to do that. And I'll show you different techniques you can use for how to extend the photo when it's not big enough to fill the slide. So you can make it fill up the whole background. And we'll talk about some layout issues like this, where that photo clearly is not big enough to fill the slide. It's not real easy to extend either. So some other options that might work better would be moving it over to one side, cropping it down so it's narrower so you have more room for text, filling the background in, and making less of a distinct hard edge between the picture and the background. Those are all things that I'll show. So here's an overview of what you're going to get. 12 weekly webinar lessons, which I'm putting a value of $144 for the 12 lessons. That's based on a friend of mine who does a 15-minute lesson every week. And the cost for that, it ends up being about $6 per lesson. So with 12 lessons, maybe I didn't do that math right, but anyway, this is not a 15-minute lesson. This is going to be a half-hour lesson plus a half hour of Q&A and feedback. So it's a 1 hour really of my time that you're getting. So I think it's going to be a good deal. And then there will be opportunities for feedback on your projects as you work on them. Ongoing access to the webinar recordings. So a couple of years later, you can still refer back to those recordings if you want to try a technique that you've forgotten about. And you'll get ongoing membership to the private Facebook group where you can get more feedback as well as interact with other students. I'm also going to give you a couple of bonuses. I have an ebook that is, I think it's actually a little over 20 pages. 7 critical things you need to know about free pictures. It goes over things to watch for with licensing. And there's really some valuable information in there. And I'm going to give you access to a 3-part training that I did 2 years ago that goes into different techniques you can use to make your PowerPoint graphics much more detailed and more precisely aligned. A lot of techniques that people don't know about. So the people who took that 2 years ago felt like they got a lot of value out of it. I'm going to give you access to those 3 recordings. There was a beginner level, which some of you won't need, I know, but it might be worth going through anyway, because you might find 1 or 2 things in there that you didn't know. And then there's an intermediate level and an advanced level. And then also offering a bonus of a 20-minute coaching session with me by Skype. And I normally charge $150 an hour for coaching. So, okay. So that's a total value on the low end estimate of $538. And I'm making this a special offer of $97 full pay for the whole 3 months. Or if you want to do a 3-pay option, you can do 3 payments of $37 each month. So if that sounds like fun to you and you would like to learn something new about picture techniques during your summer, you can go to presentationswithresults.com/picture tech. And if you have any problems with that page, it's not a built out sales page. It just has the 2 options and the buttons because, as I said, my internet was down most of the morning, so I didn't get the page finished. But it's enough to let you sign up. And if you need to review what's going to happen in the course, of course, this recording will be available on my YouTube channel, Creative Marketing TV. And if you have any trouble with the sales page or getting signed up, you can contact me at success@presentationswithresults.com. So let me take a quick look over on the view page and see if we have any comments or questions. So it's taken me a minute to bring this up here. Okay, I don't see anything, so I'm going to wrap things up then. And if you do have any questions after you watch this later, please don't hesitate to contact me either by email or if we're connected on Facebook, you can always message me there. And I hope you'll consider joining me for this. I think it's going to be a fun opportunity to learn at least 12 new techniques for formatting and editing and formatting pictures in PowerPoint and other apps. And you'll be able to apply those techniques right away to the content that you're creating and get some feedback on it. And just think, by the end of August, you can have 12 new picture techniques that you know how to use and that you can apply in your content creation for the rest of your life because you're not going to forget them, especially if you start using them right away. So, my name is Susan Joy Schlief. This is Creative Marketing TV. I hope you will consider joining me for the Picture Techniques Summer School and have fun learning some new stuff with me. Signing off for now, and I hope to see you soon.